Alright, everyone. Hello. Good to see you all. Let me just make sure I don't burn myself on anything. And I will go to my channel to check on the comments. Sorry that took so long to get the stream started. I had difficulty with my camera. It just, it wouldn't connect to the computer for some reason, but I got it to work, even though it completely threw off my timing and took me an extra 10 minutes just to get everything finished. So, anyway, I am here. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ella. Hello, Steve. Hello, Mike. Hello, Ship Geek. Hello, Max. Ship Geek says, we hear you fine before you ask. That's good, because that was going to be my next question. Yeah, so Steve from the Blue Ribbon says that... he says that on the Queen Mary, they turned on all the lights in the pool room, and then they put some of the original furniture just behind the glass door, so you can see it from where you look in. I don't... Yeah, since our live stream, Evolution has turned on all the lights in the pool and displayed some of the original furniture on the pool deck, which can be seen from the rotating door. That is really cool. That's good news because, you know, it was okay just being able to peek through the door and see some of the room, but it was so dark, you really couldn't see anything. And, but yeah, it's good to hear that they turned on all the lights and, you know, and you can see some of the original furniture. So yeah, that's pretty neat. I'll have to send, when Chris goes there to do filming for me, I'll have to send him to that area. So hopefully he has availability soon, because I've been wanting to put out a Queen Mary repair update video, but, you know, he's been real busy, and, you know, so, the other thing, too, is it's actually kind of been a little bit of a blessing, because, that he's been so busy, because every time I want to do a Queen Mary repair update video, and I post one, like, within the week afterwards, all this stuff happens that could have been in my latest repair update video, but then I have to wait another 2 to 3 months to post a video. So that's kind of been like my curse, is right after I post a video, a week later, all this stuff happens. And so, which is actually kind of funny, because if me and Chris's schedule had worked out just right, there probably would have been a repair update video last week. And within this week, all this new stuff is happening. So it's actually kind of funny, by being, you know, by him not being available to go there recently, it's actually kind of, it's kind of like skipped the curse, you know, and so now there's all this stuff that's coming out that I want to include in the next video, so, but yeah. The professor is here. Hello, Professor. Hi, Alex. Wow, the afternoon tea is earlier now. Yes, because, as a YouTuber, you have to check your video analytics to see who your audience is, what time they're around, all that kind of stuff. I'm not really available to do tea times on weekends, as much as I'd love to be, and most of my viewers are on my channel on the weekend. So the next best day to do it in the week is actually not Wednesday, it would be like Tuesday or Friday. I might end up doing tea times on Fridays, just because there's more people on the channel at that time, but, you know, we'll just have to see, you know. I don't like doing the tea times this early. It's not the proper time for me. It still feels like it's morning, even though it's 1 p.m. in the afternoon. But yeah, it's just not the right time for me to do a tea time, but this is when all my viewers are on the channel. If I was still doing them at 4 p.m., nobody would show up. I mean, there's only 24 people here right now, which is a third of what I used to get. So, yeah, I probably will have to switch tea times to being on Fridays. But, yeah, we'll see how that goes. Alright, so let's get this tea brewing. So I already have my hot tap water inside the teapot, and I don't like putting that there. I'm afraid it's gonna drop or something. I just need to dump out half of it. There we go. And then half of this. There we go. And then we top it off with some boiling water. Oops. Just to bring up the temperature a bit more. And we'll let that sit for a second. Let it get all... let the temperature rise so we don't shock the china with straight up boiling water. Let's see. Let's see here. Ship Geek says, for once you are caught up. Yeah, well, I mean, it helps that I'm caught up with comments because there's, like, nobody here. There's only, like, 24 people here at most. And that's just, like, literally a third of what I usually get. So, it's, yeah. Ozzy says, how is your weather today, Alex? Today, the weather is... It's okay. It's partly cloudy. The good news is it's nice and cold. I like cold weather, especially when I do tea times, because if it's really hot in my room, it's uncomfortable to drink hot tea, and I don't like cold tea. So, so actually, it's the temperature is good for tea time. But the only thing is, I don't like sunlight. I really don't. So the fact that it's partly cloudy and the sun is out, it's just kind of like, ugh. But yesterday was nice and cloudy. Oh my gosh, it was so dark yesterday because of all the clouds. But anyway, your second part to your question is, Alex, congratulations on hitting over 53,000 new subscribers. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. That Queen Mary pool video really blew up. And, you know, I plan to put out more videos and change the way I do video thumbnails because, I mean, you guys would agree. Those of you who have subscribed, you subscribed because you like the content. You like what is in the videos. You like how the videos are made. The only thing is that it's hard for me to get someone to click, like someone who's new, to click on a video about history. Because unless the video is showing some kind of crazy tragedy or something happening in the thumbnail, people won't click on it. And the thing is if they do click, they'll enjoy what they see and they'll subscribe, you know? And so that's the thing, is kind of like, I'm going to have to change what I do with thumbnails. I'm going to have to create thumbnails that are more exciting, or as some people might say, clickbaity. Because the thing is like, I produce really good content, but it costs a lot of money to produce this content, and I need more viewers to make up for that cost, you know? So, so yeah, I do have to start producing thumbnails that are a bit more clickbaity. I have tried for 7 years to avoid that, and it doesn't work no matter what I do. It has to be something kind of crazy. And that video only blew up because of the thumbnail. Nobody would have clicked on it if I just showed a regular picture of Queen Mary's pool. Nobody would have clicked on it. So, yeah. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I'm getting caught up on comments now. Ozzy asks, are you having Earl Grey tea today? No, today is Lady Grey tea. Steve says, is the lid on that teapot deformed? It looks like one edge bends upwards. Yes, actually, a lot of these teapots have that. I think it's because these tea sets were produced so quickly because Cunard went through them like that. And so I think they were just produced so quickly that a lot of them have deformities. Because all the teapots I've seen have a curved lip either on one of the corners. And this one, it so happens this corner is curved upwards towards that part of the lip. And the one behind me doesn't have a curved up lip, but it's too narrow towards the towards the lip. So you actually see a little bit of the inside of the teapot. So they can be pretty deformed. Okay, so time to start brewing the tea. When you brew Lady Grey tea, it doesn't need straight up boiling water, actually. It benefits from having water that is maybe 190 degrees. So I was actually able to let some of the boiling water sit for a little while before, and let it cool down a bit before I was ready to brew. So let's go ahead and fill this up. Oops, too much. Okay, that should be good. And then Lady Grey tea goes in. So this is loose leaf tea. And you could just dump the tea right into the pot. But I don't like doing that because it is quite a cleanup. Like, yeah. It is quite a cleanup when I do that. So I prefer to just, you know... I prefer to just put it in a tea infuser. Makes the cleanup a lot simpler. And I know that with the tea infuser in there, I can take the infuser out and it won't overbrew the tea. So, there we go. Now we just wait 4 minutes, so 1:26 is when I'll be able to drink tea. Russell says, hello, was the swimming pool a dangerous place to be when the Queen Mary was in rough seas? Yes. So, if the sea, so I can't say exactly what the threshold was. You know, I can't say like, oh, when the pool was tilting this much, then they would close it. I don't know what threshold it was, but there was a threshold where the pool attendant would look at the pool, and if the water was sloshing about a certain amount, they'd say, you know what, it's too dangerous to have people in here. So then he'd probably clear the room, and then they would close the pool room due to the rough weather. And then eventually someone in the turbo generator room below was in charge of draining the pool, and then they would just drain the pool to prevent the sloshing water from hindering the ship's ability to stabilize. Because if you allow water to just slosh around like that with a big heavy pool, it can destabilize the ship. So yeah. Gravitrope says, hey Alex, any plans to visit Disneyland anytime soon? No, not anytime soon. I just don't have the money to go down to Southern California. It's just too expensive. And plus, I'm not even sure I really want to visit Disneyland. It is more of a headache than it's worth. So I do eventually want to get down to Southern California to visit the Queen Mary. Last time I was on the ship was in January of 2020. I really missed the ship. I want to go back. And a lot of my friends have been saying, hey, when you get here, do you want to like hang out at Disneyland? And as much as I'm like, yeah, most of me is like, no, it's too stressful. I don't want to go there, you know, because I can't go on any of the rides I want to go on. It's way too crowded. I'm not paying any extra money for that lightning lane thing, which, by the way, doesn't work because you still have to wait in an extremely long line, even though you paid to not wait in a line. So, yeah, it's just like, it's not worth it to me. It's just not worth it. So, yeah, I don't know. If I go to Disneyland when I visit the Queen Mary, it might only be because I really, really want to be with my friends, and my friends will be at Disneyland. So, yeah. Let's see. Alea Torridade says, Alex, the Queen Mary swimming pool was dangerous in rough seas because she rolled so much in the sea. So yeah, I just answered that question, but yeah, the swimming pool was a dangerous place to be when the sea was rough. Um, 26. Okay, so time to... This tea doesn't need very long to brew. That's a very hot lid, let me tell you. Alright. So I just give that a stir to get it all mixed in. Because if I don't stir it, it won't mix. It will be a very light tea, so... Trying to... Ben says, I will be informing my students that they need to watch your channel. Oh, thanks. Are you, what kind of, instructor or teacher are you? What do you teach? What do you do? Because I know that there are some instructors, professors, teachers that watch my channel, such as Professor Ismail is often here. And so, yeah, I'm always curious to know, like, what do you teach? And what do you hope that my videos will teach? I once had it was a professor, I think, of engineering, and he used to show my video about the Disney ride Star Tours. He used to show my video to his students. Unfortunately, a lot of my Disney videos got taken down due to a dispute I had with a music creator on YouTube, and they were really mad at me. It's not entirely their fault, so don't get mad at them. I think we both kind of got into it, and so he was just so mad he just completely, like, forced me to take down all my videos. And I only put up like half the videos that were taken down because I removed his music from it and then put them back up again. But the rest I still haven't done, and I'm not sure I will do them. But one of those is Star Tours. So that poor professor, he couldn't use the video anymore, and he's been asking me, he's like, can you put it back up? And I'm like, I don't feel like going through that again. But I hate to say never, because every time I say never, I end up doing something anyway, so I don't know. Alright, let's dump out this water. Christopher says, I don't like the sun either, but I detest hot tea. Love a good sweet iced tea. I could never get into sweet teas, especially iced tea. My mother used to make sun tea all the time. She would brew sun tea, and, you know, everybody who had her sun tea loved it, but I could not stand to drink, like, sweet cold teas. There's something about the flavor. You know, my friend told me, oh, it's the tannins. You don't like the tannins that's in the tea. And when the tea is served hot, you don't taste the tannins as well. I don't know if that's what it is, but there's something about cold teas that just taste off to me, and I just can't drink them. But black teas, like the English breakfast tea, Earl Grey, Lady Grey, Irish breakfast tea, Scottish breakfast tea, it's the black teas that there's something about them, I like them. They don't taste like what I would consider to be like American teas. And they're so, yeah, to me, I can stand it. I didn't know I could, actually. Back when I first bought this Cunard tea set, I didn't originally plan to use any of it. I thought it'll be part of my collection, it'll probably gather dust on my shelf. But then the thought came to me, like, why don't I do, like, a live stream where I just hang out with my viewers and I drink tea in this, you know, antique tea set. And I thought, oh, I don't know if I'll like tea. But people were like, get Twinings Earl Grey, get Twinings English breakfast. So I bought, like, a 3-pack of Twinings tea. and brewed it the way the instructions said, and I was like, this is good. I was like, it was such an awesome discovery for me. Okay, let's answer another question while I prepare my cup of tea. Moonzer says, Alex, do you like Starbucks tea? I've never tried it, so I can't say no or yes. But what I do know is that they brew the same kinds of teas that people can, like, that Americans brew at home. So, like, they don't brew, like, this kind of tea. They brew, like, American tea, and I don't like American tea, so I don't think I will like it. Professor says, next week will mark 22 years of 9/11. Time flies. It certainly does. I can't believe it's been 22 years. You know, I thought about it, like, I was reading some kind of post, and the person who posted said, oh, I was born in the year 2000. And I'm like, that can't be. This person's, 22, 23 years old. And and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it is 2023 right now. Because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, that can't be. This person's too old to have been born in the year 2000. He's got to be born in the 1990s. No, it's been, it's been 23 years since the year 2000. It's just it's like my mental calendar has stopped in the early 2000s. They say that in the prime of your youth, when you're a teenager all the way through your early 20s, is kind of like the mental calendar that you live in, and to some people it's kind of true, especially for me. I still like all the same movies and music that I liked when I was a teenager. I haven't really changed much in that department since, because I just don't like any of the new stuff. But it's other aspects of me, of course, have matured as I've gotten older, but to some degree, even my brain still thinks it's 2005, so I'm like, it's crazy. It's crazy. Aleatoridade says, Alex, staying outside the Queen Mary was dangerous because of the rolling. Depending on how much she rolled, yes. If it was, if she was rolling pretty crazy, on some rough seas, then yeah, you probably wouldn't have want to be on any of the outdoor decks, because you could trip. Maybe you could, slip and fall off of the ship. So it's just like, depending on how crazy the rolling was, you probably wouldn't have wanted to be on any of the ship's exteriors. And when the ship rolled pretty badly, what would happen is the officers, or even the captain, would order that the passengers remain in their stateroom cabins, because if they were, let's say, walking around one of the really big public spaces on the ship, wide open spaces, and the ship tilted a lot, that person could slip and fall and then tumble, the entire, anywhere between 80 to 118 feet width of the room. So, it would have been too dangerous. So if the weather was really bad, the ship was rolling after a certain amount of degrees, then they would just say, okay, all passengers confined to their cabins, because it was just safer to keep them in their cabins. So, all right. So with my Lady Grey tea, this is the only tea that I don't drink with milk, because the milk will mute the soft flavor of the Lady Grey tea too much. Lady Grey tea is already a very light tea. So, cheers. That's yummy. I like Lady Grey tea. DNW says, cheers from Palm Springs. Yes, cheers. Did you guys do okay with the crazy rain you had a week ago? Because I heard a lot of Palm Springs got flooded. Uh, History with Kobe says, "Hey Alex, it's been a long time." Hello, Kobe. Hey Jamie, it's been reported the Queen Mary pool lights are on. Yes, Steve told me earlier. Ship Geek says, why couldn't QE be moved to Long Beach and set up next to each other, next to the Queen Mary? Ship Geek means both a part of one hotel with their cabins. So this is actually becoming a common question that's being asked to me. And the biggest reason is, let me put it this way. Now, the Queen Mary's always turned a profit. I don't want people to walk away thinking that the Queen Mary has been a financial failure. It's not. The Queen Mary is in the condition she's in because of greedy corporations that have previously leased the ship, have just pocketed most of the profits and returned very little of that profit back into the investment of the ship. So that is the reason why the ship is in the condition she's in, and that's why, you know, the ship is struggling to be repaired and all that sort of stuff. But the ship has always turned a profit. But that being said, her profit margins have, in the last 30 years, been really small. And that's because of the fact that, well, there's various factors. One, the neglect of the ship has led to a declining interest. You know, obviously, people don't want to stay in a rundown cabin where nothing works, the plumbing leaks and it smells, and the carpet's old, and the sheets are dirty. So, you know, so when that neglect happened, people didn't want to stay in the ship anymore, and after it happening for 30 years, it just got a reputation. Now, right now, the rooms are very clean. They're sparkling clean because they refurbished them before the hotel reopened earlier this year. So the rooms are sparkling clean, mattresses are brand new, sheets are brand new, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, right now, the hotel staff are working really hard to turn around that reputation that she got. But anyway, let's just put it this way. The Queen Mary had a really small profit margin, and it's difficult to get enough of the people onto the ship to make her a smashing success, simply because of all the neglect. And so, if there were 2 ships to have to take care of, then the whole business would have completely failed by now. Because if you have barely been making it by the skin of your teeth by taking care of one ocean liner the size of Queen Mary, you're definitely not surviving with 2. So that is why it would have just never been a good idea for Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth to be right next to each other. Because first of all, they would have been competing with each other. I know it seems like, oh, but there would have been 2 ships, so twice the amount of things to do. Not really. If you pay attention to the way theme parks and hotels work, there is something we say in the theme park and tourism industry that everything is all about the right. Because people tend to gravitate towards the right side of things. So, you know, if you're going to build a tourist attraction, then it would probably benefit you to have all your best stuff on the right-hand side, because that's where people will go. And so if people had to choose between Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, they're going to go to Queen Mary, or vice versa. If they were, you know, Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth are here. But anyway, the point is that they're going to go to the right. So that's one of the things you'd have to contend with. But the other thing, too, is, once again, the ships would be so similar. People might just walk aboard one, get really tired, and say, what's the point in going to the other one? It's going to be the same thing. So, you know, it's just, it wouldn't have been a good idea. It was a better idea that the 2 ships were separated from a long distance. It wouldn't have worked out, especially not with all the neglect the Queen Mary has faced, having to take care of 2 ships on top of an already decaying first ship. It just wouldn't have worked out. So, yeah. Let's see. Ben says, high school computer science teacher. Oh, nice. Well, what? Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for highlighting my channel. Yeah. they might really like it. So in 20 minutes, there's going to be a short video posted on my channel. It's just, it's a segment, like a tiny little 1-minute segment of my video called Queen Mary at War. So that segment will get posted to YouTube Shorts, and then hopefully that might draw in some more people. Because that video, it's a really good video, and it needs more views, honestly. Like, I worked really hard on that video, so I want it to get more views. Moonzer says, Alex, did you know that Coronia had some pink punkalouvers in some cabins? No, I didn't know that. Moonzer says, Alex, my aunt is buying me a telephone from Queen Mary. Awesome. That's pretty cool. History with Kobe says, I used your Christmas tree documentary as a source for a winter solstice symbolism project. Oh, nice. Thanks so much. Yeah, that was another video that I was really immensely proud of, was my video about Christmas trees. And then, like, nobody watched it. And I thought, that sucks, because it's a good video, and it's a good Christmas video, you know? But, yeah, I don't think most people on my channel even know that I did a video about Christmas trees. So, yeah. Let's see. Keith says, Alex, Disney's new management and the corporation as a whole seems to have totally lost what Disney was founded on. It's just an absolutely greedy attitude and shake every nickel out of folks. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I used to love being a cast member at Disney because when I first started there in 2009, there was still a little bit of that old, you know, this is Walt's park kind of feeling. There was a lot of things that Walt implemented that benefited us as cast members. You know, for instance, we had an annual holiday party kind of thing. So every Christmas, we were allowed to bring our friends and family, our personal close friends and family, into the park, and the only people that were in the park was cast members and their families. The park would be closed to all visitors except for cast members and their families, so we could enjoy Disneyland on our own. And we would get free ornaments for our trees. They were like actual glass ornaments. We got all kinds of free stuff, free foods, free whatever. And then even throughout the rest of the year, we would have all kinds of free parties, free games and things. I have all these pieces of memorabilia that I got for free for being a cast member. Like, I have a magnifying glass. It's a brass ringed magnifying glass with a wooden handle, and it's carved, like it says like Pirates of the Caribbean on it. It's all carved, and it's in a nice wooden box with a velvet lining. And I'm like, oh my god, this is wonderful. And I got it for free just because that's what Disney used to do. And it was so great. And then over the course of time that I worked there, they took away more and more of these things, and to the point where, like, when I had left Disney, they no longer did those cast member party things. Sure, they still allowed cast members to come to the park for free with their families, but you were mixed in with the guests. There was not a single day that you had just to yourselves. So it was nothing really special. It's like, here's just another day in Disneyland with a bunch of random people who will make the park kind of miserable for you. You know, and all those free things, free food days, free all kinds of amazing stuff that Walt Disney implemented as far back as the 1950s were completely taken away by the Disney company. And the sad thing is that nobody fought for it, you know, because the company, while I was there, decided that they preferred a high turnover rate. So it was like, when I first started there were tons of people who had been working there for 30, 40, 50 years. And, you know, it was like, it was a great place to work and retire, if, you know. So, but towards the end of me working there, they got rid of a lot of full-time shifts. I think, in fact, for low-level cast members, there were no more full-time shifts available. The only people who were full-time were the old folks who've been working there for decades. And so you couldn't apply for a full-time position anymore for certain things. It's because of that they preferred a high turnover rate. So you had people who worked there for 6 months and were gone. And it was so much. It was like every year your entire team was entirely new. And it was like us cast members who had been there for a long time, we were stuck trying to pass on we called it the Disney tradition, because we knew what Walt's Park was about. We knew what people expected when they came to Disneyland, and we would pass on that what we called tribal knowledge. And that is a term we used at Disney, was tribal knowledge, because you work there for so long, you understand the culture that Disney wants you to be. And so the thing is that that tribal knowledge just disappeared while I was working there, because the turnover rate became so high. Nobody stayed long enough to receive any of that tribal knowledge and pass it on to someone else. And it was so sad. I literally was there during the years where the company went from still being Walt's company to being a typical amusement park business. I mean, they got rid of so much stuff. We had a department that literally made signs for the company. So all the signs around the park that said, like, this attraction is closed for today, or a sign that says restrooms this way, that kind of stuff like that. We had a department that made that stuff. They'd carve it out of wood, sometimes by hand. They would paint everything and make it look beautiful, and even if it was only going to be used for a day, they would put so much detail and work into it. They got rid of that. And so now when they need to make a sign, they'll just put a cheap plastic sign up that says, oh, this attraction's closed for today. Or most recently, they replaced some hand-carved artwork in one of the shops at Disneyland with artwork, like carvings that you could get at like a regular retail outlet. Literally, they bought it at a regular retail outlet, installed it in the park, because they don't have that department that does that stuff anymore. They got rid of them because Disney looked at it and go, why are we paying for these craftsmen to work here when we could just go to, I don't know, some company like Ross or whatever and get some decorations from their decoration shelf and put it in the park. Like, it's sad. It's really sad. So, sorry, I went on a rant, you guys, but I hate what Disney has become. It was a really lovely family-oriented company when I worked there. They cared a lot about the cast members, and today they don't care about the cast members at all. They really don't care, because most of the cast members are going to be there for 6 months to a year, and then they're going to go find a better job that pays better. So when I first started there, they cared about keeping people. It was all about keeping the cast members there. Do what they can to make them happy so they'll stay. But the new company's just like, we don't care if they stay or not. In fact, we don't want them to stay, because then they'll want things. And it's sad. That's God's honest truth. They don't want to keep people there because they will want stuff. So, anyway. Get down off the soapbox, Alex. Let's see. History of Kobe says he doesn't like Earl Grey. It's a bit too earthy. I can understand that. I don't know why. For some reason, I like it. But I didn't like... So I had Lipton Earl Grey as a teenager, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. But Twinings Earl Grey, to me, it's just delicious. So... I know says... Hi, Alex. Do you have any good recommendations on how to get relatively accurate blueprints of the Queen Mary or other liners such as the SS United States? I need them for some upcoming projects. Unfortunately, I don't. I wish I did. I have some... So what most ocean liner fans, when it comes to the Queen Mary, what they have is a copy of some deck plans that were in... Where's my book? Well, it's over there. I can't get it. It's in a book called The Quadruple Screw Liner Queen Mary. And that book, those deck plans have been copied, and they're all over the internet now. And most people who have deck plans of Queen Mary, they refer to those, whether or not they know it came from that book. Problem with those plans is they're not very accurate. In fact, when those plans were made before the Queen Mary even was launched into the water, so a lot of changes were made before the ship actually went into service, and so those plans are not fully accurate, but they're the best thing you can get when it comes to 1936 blueprints of the Queen Mary, because any accurate ones that are out there are just not available on the internet, so I just don't know, you know. But yeah, I don't know. K4RNA, well, you know, I'm sorry that you're at work, but hopefully you'll be able to see the live stream afterwards. King of Battleship says, could the Queen Mary have stayed in service longer, or was she at the end of her career? Like, could Cunard have kept her in service? So, the thing about Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth and the reason why they retired was because airplanes became the dominant means of getting across the Atlantic and most of the oceans of the world. There was nowhere for Cunard to send the two ships. Queen Elizabeth did some cruising duty. She was outfitted with a Lido deck, which is a pool, an outdoor pool on the stern of the ship. She was outfitted with a Lido deck in the mid-1960s, and that helped her cruising career a little bit. But she still wasn't very popular for cruising because ocean liners are not cruise ships. They're not built that way. And so they just don't work very well as cruise ships. And so they just didn't make enough money, especially during an age when nobody was interested in sailing across the ocean when they could just fly across it. So eventually the cost of running them towards the by 1964 is when the tables turned. That's where the cost of running those two ships exceeded the profit that they made. And so that is why Cunard had to retire Queen Mary by 1967 and retired Queen Elizabeth exactly a year later in 1968. But the thing is that if the airplane industry, let's say it didn't really become big until the late 1970s, or let's say early 1980s, technically Queen Mary could have stayed in service till like 1976, let's say. But admittedly, by 1976, the interiors and the offerings and the accommodations that Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth offered would not have met the standards of the 1970s. Especially not the 1970s. People who know me know that I hate the 1970s. In terms of the 1970s, it destroyed classic architecture. It destroyed historical beauty. People in the 1970s, for some reason, did not like the way things looked from the decades before. They thought it was ugly. And so in the 1970s, you saw lots of destruction of historical places and property because they just couldn't stand the way it looked. By 1980s, you started to see preservation come in a bit more prevalently because people in the 1980s were like, no, that's beautiful architecture. We've got to save it. And even to this day, you know, there's a lot of preservation for places like the Queen Mary. But by 1970s, Art Deco was seen as like grandmother's style. So they're like, no. And today we see Art Deco as, you know, a beautiful style of an age long since past. But 1970s, they didn't see it that way. So anyway, that's just part of my hatred towards the decade of the 1970s. But because of that, the Queen Mary could have potentially lasted into the 1970s to 1976 possibly, or 1975. But the biggest thing would have been, one, the energy crisis of the early 1970s happened between 1971 and 1974, I believe it was, where energy around the planet, because oil was, there was, I don't even want to get into it. Oil was very expensive at that time. So all across the world, even the United States, oil was really scarce, and the fuel for Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth would have been exorbitant. And so that probably would have been the nail in the coffin for Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, was the energy crisis of the early 1970s. If they had survived that, they would have only lasted a year or two more, because the styles of the times were so different. People would not have wanted to stay aboard an Art Deco ocean liner. And then, of course, the fact that that airplanes, it was just inevitable, you know. So yeah, I think that honestly, 1967 for Queen Mary was actually a good time to retire. To be totally, like, looking back on it, as much as I wish she had been on the ocean for longer, it probably was going to be the best time for her to retire, because at least the people who still loved the ship were still around to see her get preserved as opposed to scrapped. So, yeah. Ship Geek says QE just as a museum. I don't know what you're asking, but yeah, I don't know. I can't answer that without knowing the context. Russell Cooper says, is there any way the Queen Mary could have made her draft shallower if necessary? So that, I'm guessing you mean so that way she can get into some of the more money-making ports? I mean, I'm sure engineers, some genius engineers, could have found a way to make her draft shallower. But, I mean, I'm no engineer. I couldn't tell you. In my head, I think it would be nearly impossible without having to rebuild the ship from the ground up. But then again, I'm not an engineer. But, obviously, there was something like money standing in the way, preventing them from doing that. Because if it was a viable solution, they would have done it. But it probably was not a very viable solution at all. So, yeah, but it wasn't just the ports. I don't want people to think that, oh, well, the Queen Mary not being able to fit in a tropical port was the nail in the coffin. No, that wasn't it. Queen Mary could not have operated as a cruise ship. She didn't have enough air conditioning. The air conditioning wasn't powerful enough for warm weather, because she was designed for the North Atlantic, not the equatorial area. The other thing, too, was most of her rooms, the second and third class, that makes up the majority of the rooms, were much too small, and many of them without windows at all, without portholes, anything like that. That would have not made for a very good cruise ship. Cruise ships need as many rooms with a porthole or a balcony as possible. Queen Mary didn't have a single room with a balcony. She would have had to add it, like the SS France did. But even then, it just, it's an exorbitant expense. And then, of course, views. The ship didn't offer very good views of the ocean. You had to be in certain places on the ship to get views of the ocean. And cruising is all about the views. You want to be able to see out the ship wherever you are, so you can see the beautiful, ocean, the islands, whatever you're passing by. Queen Mary didn't have that. There was no way to see the ship, to see the ocean from many parts of the ship. A lot of it was behind various frosted and stained glasses, so it just didn't have those views. Yeah, there's just a lot of reasons, but yeah, Jamie says, have you heard that Shacktoberfest, which is happening in October around the Queen Mary, there are plans to open the ship to guests. It's being called the Grey Ghosts aboard the Queen Mary below decks. Yeah, from what it sounds like they're building a brand new haunt maze aboard the ship. I don't like those haunt mazes. I've built haunt mazes before. I used to design and build them every October for various organizations. And those things are like fire hazards. And the only reason why they're allowed to build them is because they're temporary. You take them down. But what happens aboard the Queen Mary is they build them and then they leave them. And they're not fire safe. So it's just like, it's crazy. I used to have to design and build haunt mazes that were fire safe. We used to build haunt mazes that would have been very difficult to catch on fire. I can't say impossible because fire will ignite anything if given enough time. But these were very fire safe haunt mazes I used to design, but nobody else I know designs them that way. They're always designed out of plywood. So it's just like, I just don't see it happening. You know, I hate those haunt mazes aboard the ship. But if they took them down every year, I wouldn't, you know, complain and moan so much about it, you know, because at least I'll be like, all right, it's going at the end of October. Ship will be safe from fire after that. But they never used to take them down. So, anyway. Lost article. Stephen Hemingway says, have you thought about doing something of the lost artwork from the Queen Mary, i.e. that moved during the wartime conversion, such as the starboard gallery? Oh, like have I thought about making a video or something discussing the stuff that was lost during the conversion from the war to passenger service? I never thought about a specific video that talks specifically about that, only because I think I still need to learn more before I do it. But I do plan on making various videos of various topics, and some of that digs a little bit into specific areas that were changed during the war. But now that I think about it, it does sound like a good idea to make a video dedicated entirely to those places that were lost. But I'm still learning things. Like, I did not know that there was a boutique in the long gallery on the port side of the ship. The port side of the ship had a space called the long gallery, for those that know or don't know. But inside that space, at some point in time, there was a beautiful boutique there with little like fashion accessories. I didn't know that was ever there. I'm learning about this like just the other day, and in fact, I don't know anything about it. I don't know when it showed up. I don't know when it was removed, and I want to know. You know, so if anybody knows anything about that boutique, please tell me. I've never heard that before, but I saw a picture of it, and I'm like, I've never heard of this. You know. So, yeah, I still need to learn more before I can do a video about that. But, Hello, the big man. Cheers, mate. What's your opinion on the ocean liner model building community? Prefabricated kits, 3D printing, Lego, and such. I don't have an opinion on it. I don't know. I build models, so I don't know what you mean. But yeah, I mean, it's good. Everybody has a hobby, you know. I build models. I built this model of the Titanic and that kind of thing. So. King of Battleships, how much longer could Queen Mary have remained in service if passenger numbers didn't fall? I already answered that for you, but, yeah. Oh, wait, no, I guess that's a different question. Yeah, Steve answered your question the way I would have answered it. So Steve answered, Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth were both in superb condition, which they were. They were in superb condition, both structurally and machinery-wise. They both could have been kept operating for decades. The problem was the cost to maintain them. Yes, that is absolutely correct. The ships were in wonderful condition. I mean, I remember reading when Queen Mary came to Long Beach, she ended up sitting at a dock for like a year before they finally took her to the Navy dry dock nearby to inspect her hull, seal up any like ports and things like that for various things. So the ship had like stabilizer ports and water intakes and you know, stuff like that, and they had to seal all that up because it was never going to be used again. But nevertheless, in the dry dock, there was a Navy admiral, a very experienced Navy admiral, who was inspecting the hull of the Queen Mary. And again, this is a ship that was in service for 31 years and then left at a dock for a full year before they finally brought her into dry dock. He inspected the hull, and he I don't know exactly, I don't remember what exactly he said. I gotta find his quote again. But he basically said something along the lines of, he looked up at it and he said, "This is unbelievable. In my experience looking at ships of this age, never have I seen a ship that was in such pristine condition. It's almost like her hull is still new." And so the ship was in amazing condition when she came to Long Beach. And so she could have lasted decades more. I think there's this misconception amongst a lot of ocean liner fans that ocean liners were only built to last 40 years. I think a lot of them think that once the ship hits 40-year mark, all of a sudden the whole thing will come crumbling down. And that's not what it is. Ocean liners are built for a service of 40 years. Various things can happen over those decades. You know, the engines that were installed could become outdated and not meet modern standards. The interiors could become really outdated, and people might think it looks ugly 40 years later. All those kinds of things can add up to being something that becomes way too expensive to try to keep and maintain. And at that point, it just becomes cheaper to build a brand new ship and operate a brand new ship. So technically, 40 years is the time that most ships are usually, finally they just say, you know what, let's just build a new one. But that doesn't mean that the ships are falling apart at 40 years, because the Queen Mary is a prime example of a ship that was still in amazing condition when she arrived in Long Beach. Even though she was 31 years old, she had another, you know, at the rate she was being maintained, she could have lasted another 30 years on the ocean, before even that kind of maintenance would have become way too expensive and, you know, not worth it. So, but even then, you know, these structures, it's like I always say, as long as you maintain something, it will last forever. Because why not? You know, the only thing that could destroy it is an explosion, a fire, something beyond your control. You know, because if you keep fixing something, why would it just fall apart? It won't. As long as you maintain it, it'll be fine. So yeah, that's the same thing with those ships. So that's why when people tell me like, oh, Queen Mary wasn't meant to last this long, it's like, you don't know that. I'm like, if you keep maintaining something, it'll last. The only problem is when you stop maintaining it, then it won't last, you know. So yeah. Yeah, so that's a good answer on Steve's part. History Kobe says, do you think you could do a documentary on Pan Am? I don't think so, because I'm really only interested in steam technology from before the 1930s. So, you know, jet planes and something like that, you know, doesn't really interest me. Ship Geek says, did Diana ever go to Queen Mary? Not to my knowledge. Princess Diana has never been to the RMS Queen Mary. So, there was a... So, most Queen Mary fans know that, you know, the main elderly royals that are no longer around anymore were the ones that visited the Queen Mary. You had Queen Mary, you had King George, you had Prince Edward, who later abdicated as king. You had King George the Sixth, who was the late Queen Elizabeth's father. Then you had Queen Elizabeth and her sister Margaret were also visitors of the Queen Mary. Anybody else? And then, of course, Edward's wife, Wallis Simpson. So you had those kinds of royals, but I recently found out that there was another royal that visited the Queen Mary in New York just prior to the Queen Mary's retirement. Geez, I read it the other day, and it didn't sink into my head, so I don't remember who it was. But yeah, they had visited the ship just before her retirement, and it wasn't Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. She did visit the Queen Elizabeth right before the Queen Elizabeth retired, but there was a royal, a younger royal, who visited the Queen Mary in New York just prior to her retirement. I can't remember for the life of me who it was. Hey, Goofy Rolls. I'm doing good. How about you? Nathan Ledge says, "Hi Alex, do you think any current employer of Disney will watch your videos, then pass on your current thoughts on the parks, whether good or bad?" I'm not sure what you're asking, but if you're asking if they see my videos, will they pass on my feedback to improve the company, then my answer is no, they certainly won't. Because the problem with the Disney company is that when it comes to receiving criticism, a lot of the higher-ups have their heads up their butts, and they really don't care. So if someone like me is sitting here going, here's what's wrong with the company, then the person who could make those changes will just watch it and go, that guy's just some complainer. He doesn't know what this company's really about, obviously, because it doesn't work for us anymore. They have their heads up their butts, so they really won't. And the customers themselves will continue to suffer because they don't stand up for anything. They don't stand up for themselves. They don't say, no, we need to be treated fairly. Sure, they do occasionally go on strike for things like pay and stuff like that. But it's the other little things that they get distracted from because they think, oh, I'm only going to be here for a year, so I really don't care if this gets taken away from me. And that's the problem, is so much stuff has been taken away because no one has made a firm stand against the company and said, hey, people deserve this, and this should be a tradition that stays for longer. Or at least a mindset, if not a tradition, then there's a mindset that we used to have that should stay for longer. But no one's going to defend it, so it's not going to happen. Moonzer says, when QE was in Port Everglades, supposedly you were allowed to enter some cabins on board the ship. Yes, you were. So, once again, the QE never officially opened as a hotel or museum while in Port Everglades, because she, first of all, didn't even have power or water connection. She did not have the ability to turn on any lights or anything like that. When people went on the ship, they paid a tour guide to take them aboard, and the tour guide would have to bring flashlights to walk them around the ship because there was no power. So, yeah, no doubt they probably took people into some of the cabins to show them what the cabins look like. But it's not like it was like an official tourist attraction. It's not like you'd go there like you do the Queen Mary and everything is set up, there's exhibits everywhere. It wasn't like that at all. The ship was just left the way she was when she was last in service, and then they just brought people on with flashlights to show them around. So it never officially really opened as a hotel or museum because they just didn't have the money to convert her into one. So, yeah. Transportation Fan says, Alex, will the next stream be on Sunday? No, I don't think so. I try not to do because Sunday is my dad's day off of work. Wednesdays are my dad's day off. I try not to do streams on Wednesdays or Sundays anymore because, he and I end up having to do a bunch of stuff. We have to run errands on Wednesdays and Sundays. So I just don't really have time to do live streams. It kind of takes up the whole day. And, so it's unfortunate because Wednesdays and Sundays were the prime days for me to be able to do live streams. That's when everybody was on the channel. But yeah, I can't do that anymore because we're usually too busy. So, let's see, at the time I wasn't pulling out any she was Boston years later she would have. Here's Prince Michael of Kent. Oh, that must have been what it is then. In Long Beach years, Prince Michael of Kent visited several times. He is a grandson of Queen Mary. That is pretty cool. That might have been who I was thinking of. Because I wanted to say Long Beach, but my logical part of my brain was like, come on, no royals ever came to Long Beach to see the Queen Mary. So I just said New York. But in my head, I'm thinking, I remember reading it was Long Beach. So I think that's who it was. I think it was Prince Kent. NCC says, gosh, feels like it's been forever since the last tea time. I know, it's been a whole week. I used to do these tea times twice a week. Hello, Ron. Russell Cooper says, met Princess Margaret once. She said a brief hello to me and was polite to everyone. Nice. Yeah. I had always wished I could have seen Queen Elizabeth with my own eyes. I mean, granted, I don't imagine I would have ever been able to meet her. I mean, it's very rare for someone to be able to say that they have met the monarch. But I'd always wished that, So, you guys know about my UK trip, right? One of the reasons why I even planned the UK trip was because I wanted to be in England while Queen Elizabeth was still alive. I wanted to be able to to tell my nieces or nephews one day that, that, hey, I visited, England and the UK while, it was still the Elizabethan era. And, and maybe I could say, oh, I saw her motorcade drive by, that kind of thing. That meant a lot to me. But she ended up dying before I could even get plans underway. I still don't have plans underway yet because I don't have all the money necessary to travel. So, I was a little bit bummed by that, but honestly, it's not like nobody saw it coming. She was 96 years old, so, but yeah. Goofy Roll says, we are way past tea time now, we are up to you time. As long as it's not Z. Ron, yes, I saw your comment. I just didn't really have anything to add to it or to say to it. But yeah. I wish I could say, oh, send me the link, but the thing is, I don't even have time to watch videos, so everybody I know sends me YouTube videos. They're like, oh, watch this, watch this, watch this. I'm like, I don't have time. Like, that's one of the reasons why when people say, like, Alex, what are some YouTube channels you like watching? I kind of glot, like, what's the word? Just, I don't know what to say because I'm like, I don't watch anything because I don't really have the time to watch anything. It's like, in between posting videos or doing my live streams, I'm usually like working or doing something else or, I'm usually very busy. I don't have time to watch anything. So as much as I'd love to say, oh, send it to me and I'll watch it, I can't. So, NCC says, I must have missed the notification for the last stream. So the last one I saw was July 26th. Yeah, I did one earlier, a week ago. So yeah. It had the one I did a week ago was a whole month hiatus. So it had broken a month worth of hiatus. And the reason why I was on hiatus for a month was because it was so darn hot. We were going through such a heat wave for a solid month. And it was just very uncomfortable to sit here with all the lights on me, you know, and my portable air conditioners in my apartment were in other rooms, and the coldness just didn't reach this room. And so it was just really, it was just a terrible time to do a tea time live stream. So, but now the weather is cooling down because we're rapidly, changing to autumn weather. So yeah, it's nice. Like, it's actually kind of funny. You can smell the season outside. So like, fall smells a certain way outside, and it's starting to smell like fall right now. And of course, winter has its own smell. Winter smells like ice. Well, even if it's not icy outside, it smells like ice. It's kind of weird. But yeah. Ship Geek says, "Hey Alex, were any crew of the Titanic a crew member or aboard her?" Yeah, there were some crew aboard the Queen Mary in her early years in 1936 that were, I think, crew of at least Olympic, if not Titanic. But what's kind of funny was, I want to say in 1936, one of the first officers of Queen Mary was I don't remember, what was he in 1912? He was a okay, well, I don't remember, but one of the first officers of Queen Mary in 1936 was an officer aboard the RMS Carpathia, because Carpathia was a Cunard liner, Queen Mary was a Cunard liner. So there was at least that I know of for sure, but I do remember reading something about there being crew from Olympic, possibly Titanic, who were crew aboard the Queen Mary. So yeah, for sure. Jamie, I'm not really sure what your question is. Boarding the Queen Mary for $25/$35. Well, which one is it? Is it 25 or is it 35? This does not include restaurant service for the guests. Should there be some kind of discount? Any ideas on how you would do this? I don't... See, that doesn't make sense to me. Why would you expect a discount for purchasing something that's extra? You know, like... It's kind of like... It's almost like, kind of like... well, I don't think there's any other example I could give that is similar to it, but... Yeah, it's essentially like saying, oh, I'm going to this place that charges admission. I plan to buy food during the day, but I want a discount just for the fact that I'm going to buy food. That doesn't make sense to me. I suppose the next best thing I can think of is like going to Disneyland. It's like, oh, I'm going to Disneyland, but I want a discount on food because I'm at Disneyland. And it's like, that doesn't make sense, but if there was a promotional idea, I would say if they wanted to do a temporary promotion, what they could do is offer actually, I don't think this should be temporary. I think it should be permanent, but they should offer a full day package that includes entertainment, dining, and a tour or two that is all rolled up with the price of admission. And the idea is, altogether, it should cost a few bucks less than what you would pay for all those things separately. So it's not necessarily a discount, but it is a promotion to make you pay more money, so that way you're not leaving the ship and doing something else off the ship. So I think, if people from Queen Mary are watching, and sometimes they are, consider selling full experience packages. I said this in my last Queen Mary update. At the very end, I talked about how they should be selling experience packages on the ship. I know it will take a long time to implement. I don't expect it to happen overnight, but that should be a goal of theirs, is to sell experience packages to make it feel like you're staying aboard the ocean liner for a full day or a full weekend or something, in order to experience what life might have been like for a passenger. I say might because it's more of an idealized version of a passenger experience, but nevertheless, that's what the Queen Mary should be striving for, is selling experience packages that allow you to have a full day or full weekend experience as if you're sailing aboard the ship. And like I said, that should include, it should be a one price, like a fixed price, that gives you not just admission, but food at a restaurant or two, a tour or two, and entertainment options. So that way people have a reason to stay the whole day. Because one of the biggest things, like one of the things I don't think will work, because everybody says, oh, they should build like a mall next to Queen Mary and put all the dining and entertainment there. And it's like, I understand why people might think that's a good idea. But before they build anything outside the Queen Mary, they should fix the Queen Mary itself. They should make the Queen Mary her own entertainment island. Like, she should be self-sustaining before they even spend money on a complex next to the ship. And the reason why is because you might think that building an entertainment and shopping complex next to the ship will bring hordes of crowds onto the ship. No, you might see a small increase, but it doesn't equate. So people visiting the shopping and dining district are not going to be there for the sole purpose of visiting the ship. So only a small fraction of them will, because, that small fraction will be like, oh, there's the Queen Mary, always wanted to see it, let's go. But most people who will be there are there to see the shopping and dining off the ship. So what they should be doing is, before they even consider building something next to the ship, they should build things on the ship. Sorry, my southern drawl wants to come out. But should build things on the ship. And one of those things is they should offer that full package experience. Everything that you could suggest, more dining options, more entertainment options, more shopping options, build that on the ship first, so people have a reason to stay all day long. Because if you give them a reason to leave the ship, they will leave the ship for bigger and better things. So the goal here is to make them not want to leave the ship. Everything they could want. They want coffee, they want soda, they want to go relax, they want to, I don't know, kick a fish. It should be done on the Queen Mary. So that way people don't leave. And that is the secret to Disneyland's success, was that other amusement parks, if you went to like your local fair or something like that, and you went on a few rides, but you thought the food maybe wasn't that good, although it's hard to say because fair food is usually really good. But let's just say you went to a carnival and the food was awful. You might just say, okay, let's spend a few hours at the carnival, then we'll leave and go get dinner at an actual place. And what Walt Disney knew was, you can't give people reasons to leave. You need to give them reasons to stay within the park boundary. So he made sure that everything that people could possibly want was kept in the park. They even had an experience, right? They don't do this anymore, but in 1956, they added the ability for you to actually go fishing off of the piers of Tom Sawyer's Island in Frontierland. That's right, you could actually fish for trout in the water at Disneyland. They would give you the pole, they would give you the bait, they give you everything you need to go fishing. You fish for your trout. So what do you think would happen next? People go, oh, I got my trout, but I better go take it home and refrigerate it. No, they also offered to refrigerate your trout. So if you caught a trout at Disneyland, you could immediately take it right across the river to Riverbell Terrace Restaurant. And they had special freezers for holding the fish that you caught, and they would tag it and make sure it was yours and all that kind of stuff. So Disney knew that if you want to keep people spending money at your place, you need to give them no reasons to leave. And so the Queen Mary should do that. The people aboard the Queen Mary should know that do not try to promote people leaving the ship to go get things. You know, people go like, oh, they should sell a package where like you leave the ship to go to the to go to the Aquarium of the Pacific or something like that, right? I love the Aquarium of the Pacific. Shout out to people who work at Aquarium of the Pacific. It's my favorite place to go see sea creatures. But from a purely business standpoint, if people want to see fish, there should be some aquariums on the Queen Mary, because you don't want people to leave the ship if you're trying to make money. So yeah, that's my biggest advice to the Queen Mary people, is don't give them reasons to leave. All right, off the soapbox again, but yeah. Yes, Steve said it perfectly. Ship first, wharf second. Exactly. Yes. Chris Surface. Oh, that question about Lusitania hitting an iceberg is way too complicated for me to even contemplate right now. That's like something I'd have to take days to really look at and analyze. I don't think I could answer it right now. Ron says, Alex, I know you don't really care for the Aquitania. I think you should look more into her. I really like that ship, and also have my least favorite ones as well, but a newer documentary on her. I'm not disinterested in Aquitania. All I said was I don't think that she's as beautiful on the outside as she is on the inside. That doesn't mean I'm not interested in Aquitania. I am interested in Aquitania. But the thing is I'm not going to continue making full documentaries about the full history of ships. Because every time I do, someone else either already has a better video than mine, or they will be soon posting one. And I always have the bad luck of posting a documentary about a brand new ship or something like that, and then someone else comes and posts their own, and I don't even get a chance to post mine. And it's like wasting months and months of work on something that I can't even publish. So I decided that instead of doing full-length documentaries, which, like I said, takes months and months and months to do, and then you never know if people are actually going to watch it, I'm actually going to change how I do things and make little snippets of events or historic significance of specific things about these ships. So so I wouldn't expect a full documentary on the Aquitania. I didn't do it for Mauritania. My video about the Mauritania was only about the crazy story of the time it took to design and then launch her and get her to win the blue ribbon. And that video didn't do very well. It's still considered a failure. And imagine, I thought to myself, man, because I originally had planned that Mauritania video to be a full documentary on the Mauritania. It would have been like a half hour long. And then I thought to myself after that little short video came out, I'm like, this video failed miserably. If I had spent several more months finishing it to make it the full documentary I wanted to make, and it had failed like this, I would have wasted months of work. And so I just don't like that. It's just, yeah. So, so I wouldn't expect full documentaries anymore. It's just going to be videos about specific topics about the ships. But yeah. Oops. In fact, the ship that's behind me is the Aquitania, on the painting. Jeffrey Charles says, "Hey Alex, since your pool video blew up, will you be able to take your UK trip now?" I didn't earn that much money from the pool video. The pool video got me enough money to pay back some of the rent that I owe and to help pay off some of my bills that were running late. Because as you guys know, the summer was really tough on me. There wasn't a lot of views on my channel, and so my bills were actually running behind. And so I got caught up on my bills thanks to that video. But the viewership on the video, it made a straight line up, and then it made a diagonal line down back to where I'm normally at. So no, it will take probably making popular videos like that for the rest of the year for me to be able to start actually saving up money again. Because I have a lot of stuff. I went to the hospital a month ago. I have to pay my hospital bill now, which is like $5,000, because I don't have insurance that will cover it. Which is ridiculous. I have to pay out of pocket, and it's like $5,000. I still have to pay off my taxes because IRS was like, oh, well, you owe this much money in taxes, something like $3,000 in taxes. So yeah, I'm thousands of dollars in debt right now from like two simple things. So yeah, it will take me the rest of the year of making videos as popular as that pool video to be able to get back to where I was and continue saving. So I kept all the money that was donated and the money that I saved towards my trip in a completely separate bank account, which I never touch. And all that is still there. But for my own personal expenses, I am running on the negative. So, yeah. Let's see. Ship Geek says, I don't think 5 compartments on Titanic were breached. Well, I mean, it's not really... I don't think that's one of those things you could actually debate. Because we know how much damage was sustained. It was about 250 some odd feet of damage from one point on the ship to the other. And when you line up those points with the deck plans, you can see that it was 5 compartments that were breached. One of those compartments was only breached by a tiny bit, a few feet, and that was the coal bunker of that side of the ship. But nevertheless, it did breach that area, and the water eventually spilled into the rest of the 5th compartment. But yeah, it was 5 compartments. But anyway, I don't want to talk about Titanic. So, because like I said, I don't like talking about Titanic. So let's not get into a Titanic discussion. Because first of all, I give people what I know. And then what happens is they all contact me and they're like, oh, but did you hear about this? And did you hear about that? And did you know that's not right? And it becomes like a can of worms. And they're all crawling around everywhere. Different facts, different opinions. And I can't keep up with it. I really can't. I don't have the energy. So that's why I don't talk about Titanic on my channel. Because it's like I'm not the person who can handle that can of worms. I'll leave it to the other people who have been researching Titanic far longer than I have. You know, people like Sam from Historic Travels, people like Mike Brady from Ocean Liner Designs. Those kinds of people, you know, are much better equipped to have a conversation about Titanic than I am. So let's talk about other ships I know better, like Queen Mary. But yeah, let's see. Space Shuttle Lover says, hi Alex, have you seen The Haunting of Queen Mary? It's a really good movie. I haven't seen it, but I highly doubt I would think it's a good movie. Ron says, Titanic people, please be nice. I know, there's so many people that comment on my channel. People who probably aren't even subscribed, but they'll watch a video of mine and they'll be like, why don't you mention Titanic in this video? And I'm like, because I don't feel like it. There are some people, though, that were Titanic fans that, like, they would see my videos and they'd be like, you know, you need to give more attention to Titanic, as if I deserve, like, no, that's wrong phrasing, as if I am required to give Titanic the attention it deserves. And I'm like, no. I mean, it's a tragic story. It was a horrible, you know, tragedy, and Titanic was, in her own way, very beautiful, and was, you know, just quite a story. But I do not owe the Titanic anything. You know, like, I don't, you know. And then there's so many people that are like, who, if they do provide a reason, they're like, you owe it to the Titanic because the whole reason why you're an ocean liner fan is because of the Titanic. And I'm like, you don't know me. I'm like, I became I became an ocean liner fan because of the Queen Mary. The Titanic did not influence me whatsoever. Because the first time I even thought about my interest in ocean liners was in the year 2021, while I was researching the Queen Mary. I had never, prior to that, done any research on Titanic. I had seen the movie, of course, and I thought the movie was a really cool spectacle, but I had never been interested in researching the Titanic. It was after my visit in January of 2020 to the Queen Mary that I started to fall in love with the Queen Mary. And in 2021, the idea came to me that maybe I might want to make a few videos about the Queen Mary. So I started doing research on the Queen Mary. And in my research, I stumbled across other ships that suddenly caught my interest, like Oceanic and Queen Elizabeth and, you know, just a bunch of ships like that. And those ships and the Queen Mary are what got me into ocean liners, not Titanic. And to this day, Titanic is not one of my favorite ships. I created a top 10 video of my top 10 favorite ships. Titanic isn't on it. Doesn't mean I don't like Titanic at all. I do. It's just that it's not on my top 10. And people can't believe that. And they get mad and they're like, you need to have Titanic on your top 10. I'm like, no, it's this, you know, just because you didn't, you know, live my life and experience, you know, ocean liners through my eyes doesn't mean that it's not valid, you know. So, yeah. That is one of the reasons why I do not talk about Titanic on my channel, is because people think I owe the Titanic something. And I'm like, I don't owe it anything. Yeah, so Mike says, I like Olympic more than Titanic. I agree. If I had to list things in order, Olympic would be number 11 on my favorite ships list, and Titanic would be number 12. So, yeah, I like Olympic more than Titanic. And the reason why is because Olympic actually had this really long and storied career. She served during World War I, and had almost survived the Great Depression. But the Great Depression ultimately, you know, delivered the final blow. But yeah, you know, like, Olympic had a much more storied career than Titanic, so I like the Olympic a lot more. NCC638, $50. Thank you so much. Hope this helps a little. Thank you so much, NCC. That's really nice of you. You didn't have to do that. And it really does help a lot. You know, like, because of my schizophrenia, I can't really work or do things anymore like I used to. I used to be a chef. I often tell people, I'm like, I earned a lot more money as a chef than I was a YouTuber. So if it was money I was all about, I'd be doing chef stuff again. But the thing is that I can't do that kind of work anymore. I'm not mentally stable enough to do it. And using this as a hobby and being able to make videos about my interests, about steamships and trains and all kinds of stuff like that, it's something I can do and earn money off of to live. But unfortunately, sometimes summertime can just really kick me in the butt, and sometimes I just don't make enough money during summer. So, but you know, it's now autumn. The views are returning to the channel, which is really, really good. It happens every year. Every autumn, there's more people watching. So I'm hoping I can get caught up again and quickly start saving up for that trip, do more of the stuff, because I know everybody's waiting for me to go. I want to go. My friend Chris is like, come on, Alex, let's go to the UK. Like, he really wants to go right now. So I'm hoping I can catch up and do all that stuff. So, yeah. Let's see. Steve says, man, I need to get monetized soon. Yeah, I know. My dad did he's doing his cooking channel, and he sees how hard it is now, because even though, like, his channel's a lot easier than what I do, because I film him cooking, and then my dad takes it to the computer, and then, like, snaps all the videos together. Might be doing some cuts here and there, but he basically snaps all the video files together, and then posts a video. And that, for him, is kind of hard work, because it is new to him, after all. But, you know, what I do is much harder, because I don't always have footage to show people. I have to go looking for it, you know, like, I have to go find historic footage, find historic photos, find the research that backs up everything that I say in my videos. And then I post the video, and then have to deal with people who don't read the description of the video, and they go, you just made that information up. And I'm like, if you look in the description, I have my sources listed. You know, so yeah. Like, this one guy watched my Queen Mary pool video, and he was like, none of this stuff makes sense. Like, you know, obviously you just, I don't know what he said, but he's like, obviously you just made up all this stuff or something like that. And I literally did all this research, some of it which, admittedly, I can't, like, physically prove, but I did do all this research. It's not hard to come to the same conclusion I did, because if you ask the same people, they will give you the same answer that they gave me. You know, so it's like, ugh. But yeah. Ugh. But you know what? I like what I do so much that things like that, as much as it bothers me, is not a big deal in the long run. Because I love what I do. I love talking about history much more than I ever loved cooking. And I loved cooking. So I would much rather get in a conversation with someone who's like, you made this information up, than have to deal with someone who's like, you cooked my fish wrong. And it's like, no, pretty sure you said you wanted it like this, and that's how I made it. You know, so, yeah, I like what I do right now a lot more than anything I've ever done in my life. This is fun. It may not pay a lot, but it's great. I feel fulfilled talking about history. So, yeah. And trying to get people interested. There's so many people who... I got a comment yesterday from someone who said, just saw this video. I think it was my Queen Mary at War video. And they said, just saw this video, earned an instant subscribe, I think they said. I was like, oh man, that is like so awesome. Because, you know, getting people interested in history and getting them to learn something new and explore a new topic that they probably never considered before, that is awesome. That is really awesome. It makes me feel so accomplished, you know. So... Chip Geek, I am reading your comments. I just don't read them out loud. I can't read every single comment out loud and then comment on that, because then we'll be here forever. But I do read, I read every comment that people post. I just don't read them all out loud. But yeah. What time is it? 2:49? Started at 1. So it's been an hour and 49, an hour and 50 minutes, just about, yeah, hour 50 minutes by now. Okay, I do have to get going because I have to clean the house. We're expecting some company today, and so I have to get everything clean and sparkling and do dishes. I hate doing dishes. But, God, you know... I wish I was rich. I would hire a maid. Just, like, not have to worry about this stuff. Because I swear, like, half of my day is cleaning. No, that wouldn't be right. A third of my day is cleaning. Or something. Just related to cleaning. And then a third of my day is, like, doing research and making videos. And then the other third of my day is split between making food, like dinner or something, or depending on, like, if it's my dad's day off, I'll make breakfast or whatever. And then, like, the rest is, like, sleeping, you know, overnight. Because I stay up pretty late. I stay up late because I'm often working late on videos and stuff. I don't fall asleep sometimes till 4 in the morning. And then I wake up, and it's, like, 10, and I have to get my day started, and I'm so drowsy, and then I don't get through the cleaning process or anything till like noon, and that's when I can start working on videos again. So yeah, it is a lot. It is a lot. Alright folks, I'm gonna get going. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully we'll be doing another tea time. Well, I should switch to Fridays, because that's when more people are online. So maybe we'll do the next tea time. Maybe we'll do the next tea time this Friday. And then we'll do them every Friday after. Because it seems that that's the best time for me to do tea times, honestly. Oh, but I need to publish regular videos on Fridays. We'll work it out. We'll figure it out. Alright, folks. Alright, folks, thanks so much, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody.